Ladies and gentlemen, here we go.
Yes,
I'd like to introduce my old friend, and when I say old friend, this is Lou Doyle, who appeared years ago, basketball guy, in New York City. He's from New York, I'm from New York, you're from New York. And played basketball under my kind of crummy tutelage back in 1901. And he's also later as a ball boy for the New York Knickerbockers. And what team did you play for in Europe?
I played in Strasbourg for l'Association Sportive Mineral.
Got it. He lives in West Orange, and he grew ever since then in New York City.
14.
All right, folks. I am. The title is kind of a misnomer. It's a name of City Games, as you see. The City Game was the title of a book by Pete Axtell. Did you ever meet him?
Did not. I probably did, but I didn't know it at the time.
He wrote a book called The City Game, based on the life of a basketball player. And if you're from New York, what I want to show you tonight is some of the stuff we grew up with, particularly in basketball and on the streets, and basically the road not taken, if you recognize the Robert Frost poem, is the choices that we make growing up. We all have choices, depending where we grow up or how we grow up. We don't have a choice of where, but we do have some choices. This was brought to my attention, I guess. I was teaching in East Orange at the Clifford Scott High School, and the disciplinarian and head coach who I worked for was from New York, same neighborhood. He was running numbers, and he made a choice the other way. He's gone now, but he always said everybody has a choice to make, particularly Betty. I can see Betty leaning around. So,
no, I'm fine. Thank you.
His name was Nelson Bond, and he's a friend of mine. And the issue at that school, they sent me out to scout. I coached for about 9 years in New York in smaller private schools, including Lewis, who here was the center back in the day when we both could run. Right. And so when I came out here, they said to me, I said, I live near, I don't know what school I could scout for you. And I did. And they said, you got to be the coach. I said, well, okay, but I'm going to night school 1 night a week. Don't worry about it. And so here I was, all 6 foot tall. I used to be that tall. And they played for the Harlem Wizards or Magicians, whatever they were town. Tom was 6'4", Nelson was 6'7", so I was the little white guy in the middle. And another one of the coaches went to the principal and said, we can't have a white coach for black players because we play in a white league. And Nelson went in and said, I don't look at it that way. He's sitting. He knows what he's doing. So there I was. I had some adventures, to tell you the truth. But this is about, maybe it brings back some nostalgia about the way we grew up. And I love it, but it's still working. Okay, let's get started. Oh, I did well there, Jared. Can you help me out? I screwed up big time. From the library, I can start a library.
Howdy, folks. All right, how's that?
Howdy, Jerry.
One more. Yeah, that's the first slide.
You want to start here or you want to start on?
I'll slide them. I'm going to slide 2. It's okay.
Slide 2.
If you look at this is the New Jersey high school ball. You notice how they have the football field, the varsity baseball field, the JV field. Well, in New York City, we don't have room for that. You go to a public school, I'm going to show you where you play and what I played on growing up. Nothing that ever looked like that. Space bar, Jeff?
You could try that. Let's see if that works.
Oh, it's down here.
There you go.
There you go. This was my high school circa 1958. Today it is still there, but it's on a square city block. And you had to take an entrance exam to get in, which were 2 deterrents to sports. No, we did not have a football team. We had a basketball team. I was telling Lou earlier, it was probably the worst one in New York City. And Sports was unimportant. Academics was very, very important. Some heavy hitters. So, you know what? I'm going to try to find them. Backward, I want to go forward. This was where I went to Inwood Junior High. It's probably the oldest school building in Manhattan. And the gym was sparse. I walked to school afraid for my life because we had an intramural baseball, softball league. And my little class, I guess I was in 7SP1 playing. We were losing by about 1 run. And I was up next, bases loaded. A kid walks up to me, puts a knife to my throat, and says, "You don't want to get hit." So I put my glove in my pocket, took my bat, singled in the run, and ran home carrying the bat. It was that kind of school. I did not go to the bathroom. I did not carry lunch money because you'd probably lose it. This is 1950 something.
You went backwards.
Electronic science return. I went backwards again.
Yep. Oh, there you go.
All right.
Spalding.
Who can identify this, Daisy?
Oh, I just said it. Whoops, I said
All that.
Spalding.
Spalding.
Yeah.
It is not a Spalding, it's a
Wow.
Spalding. Louis, you know it's a Spalding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Had
And
many
if
of
you look at,
Oh, you wrote it on there. I didn't even notice that.
how come you know it?
I
Anybody?
grew up in Brooklyn.
Oh, that's good. He grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
There we go. It wasn't just any old ball. It was formed our childhoods and kept us outside in the fresh air from dawn till dusk. It taught us how to be resourceful. It taught us how to get along with others. It taught us that all we needed was our imagination. If you look up there, there is
And a
something.
couple of balls.
What do you call it? Right from the list.
Man, hit the
Chips on the ball. Chips on the ball was a quarter. Now it's a much more. We played hit the penny. Everybody played hit the penny?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, behind you. We have to. How about stickball?
Stupid.
Anybody play stickball?
Oh, yeah.
How you start playing stickball? First you steal a broom.
Broom handle.
Then
Yeah.
you stick it down the sewer, break the top off. Stoop ball.
Yep.
Many people out here don't know what a stoop is. And then, hey, my name is Alice. Remember that with the ball and the leg going up and down and all that
That one I
stuff.
know.
Jacks, box ball, punch ball, off the wall, dibs on the ball, chips on the ball. It means the same thing. How about potsy? You skip and, I don't know what they call it, bottle cap hockey. And my favorite, Scully. Just played with bottle caps. You played that too, see?
Ours in town had a lot of playgrounds.
Well, Inwood did. Just looking. Make sure I go in the right direction. Here we are. Now, this is a stoop. Sitting on the left is what is called in New York a stoop. It comes from a Dutch word, stoop, meaning steps. And this side, if you play stoop ball, you bounce the ball off the lower step and run the bases, which are in the middle of traffic, but that's okay. This is Scully, played with bottle caps. I don't know how those kids, they all look related. I don't know what. And then you shoot the bottle caps around. The New York kids were very resourceful. We had no schoolyards you could comfortably play in, and we had nothing in the park. Now, Stuyvesant, you were near quite a few parks over that.
Well, Stuyvesant Town was a very large private housing development that was built by Metropolitan Life for World War II veterans and their families. And they had, it was 8,000 plus apartments.
Yeah.
All in 12-story brown brick or reddish brown brick buildings. And there were 12 playgrounds that were all
And ball fields. There was
organized with fences around them and different configurations inside. And some were geared towards younger kids, which had skelly courts and monkey bars and swings. And the others were geared towards the older kids with basketball.
People go on monkey bars today. You all know what monkey bars are?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're climbing the monkey bars.
Litigation.
Yeah, right. Piece of a tooth out.
Yeah.
Climbing up. We all lost some teeth. This is my playground on the right. And if you're from New York, Of course, our ball fields were this. If the police came along, you yelled out at the top of your lungs, "Chicky, the cops," and ran and threw the handle under a car. Now, suppose the way this game was measured, you see the sewers? Sewers. And the cars had door handles, right? The cars with the door handles. So the idea, if you're playing football, you block your man into the door handle. That was one. And also the way the game was measured, you count the sewers. Yeah, this has got to be around the 50s sometime, I think. And again, the rule was you had to do your homework before you could go down the street. And you could do it once your mother said you were free. However, this is schoolyard baseball where you throw the ball. This kid's got a tennis ball, throwing it into the white square, and here you measure the bases by boxes or windows, or hopefully you didn't break one. And this is the all-time stickball record. Willie Mays, the Say Hank Kid, I think he hit the ball 4 to 5 sewers. And he is still known as the greatest stickball player to play in New York. I remember that. Never saw him do it, though. If you look on the left, that is the schoolyard, what it looks like today from PS 152. And if you look at the back 3 windows, that's about where we played punch ball. That's where I grew up, playing ball at recess. The others, if you look at we call them ash cans because of heat and all the ash cans. So the way you play basketball is to take the cover off the ash can and shoot for the can. Do you ever do that? You know, as you reach it. Now, this is interesting too. This is church. This is our Savior's Atonement Lutheran Church on 189th Street and Bennett Avenue. When they built the church in the 20s, before the Depression hit, they decided they'd garner youth by putting in a bowling alley and a gym and a theater. Well, it comes to Depression, they never built the church. So the church, as I knew it, was a theater. It still has footlights to this day. And the minister, that's my mentor, Pastor Schweiger, had played college basketball. So, and if you look for Louis' interest, my brother is the kid in the Neil Johnson's younger brother is the kid there. And Pastor said, if you left school, anybody do release time, or is that just me? Thursdays you can go for Bible study. And if you went to Bible study, you could get basketball lessons in the gym. I do remember the lady who taught it. I am convinced she was right. She said, "You're all going to hell. You're just going to hell because you're all bad." And I'd wait to get through that, go downstairs, take my shirt off, and Pastor would roll up his sleeves, teach us to shoot, to dribble, to run, and all of that stuff. So, also from the neighborhood, which is kind of interesting, this is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who you see in the advertisements now. In the 8th grade, he was 6'8". He did not fit on the subway. And the long and tall of it, that's Tiny Archibald. What's his other nickname, Lou? Tiny. Yeah, another one.
Nate the Skate.
Yeah, Nate the Skate. He's 5'6", 7", something like that. Had a long professional career. He's from the Bronx over the river.
At one time led the entire NBA in scoring and assists in the same season.
Yeah, he was quite. Now remember, this is long before they had a 3-point play. This picture, Lou played for St. Jude's before he was Kareem, and he got his height and his basketball skills from
Power Memorial.
Yeah, wait. His mother taught him. She was a female 6'3" basketball player. And every morning I'd be going to NYU on the A train, and he'd be there, but he could not sit down because he did not fit. 7'4". Big man. And his knees went in the aisle, and if you stand in the middle, get his head cut off by the fan. So he was not happy. Very reticent, but he's gone down to Power Memorial. Now, these are the city courts. If you're not a really good basketball player, you're not allowed on them. They'll tell you. All the pros played. This one's on West 4th Street. You can see the crowd it drew. This is known as the Cage. You can see who played there. Ron Strickland, Lloyd Daniels, Lamar Odom, all pros. I like Booger Smith personally, but Anthony Mason, I don't think he's alive anymore, Lou. This is the Cage. The other one's my neighborhood. This is called Dyckman, Manhattan. If you look in the background, there are projects. One of the points of this too is there were so many ball players who were better than anything you can imagine. And I'm talking about choices, made the wrong choice. And we'll look at some of them in a moment. Veterans, Ron Artest, Kyrie Irving, who's still playing today, they come here, they fill the stands and watch. People wait for a game. They have organized games. I'm sure there are people up on those balconies. It's 22 stories high, looking onto the ball court. Of course, what they used to say, and this is my own neighborhood, they used to say that if you walk down this way, that's a quick way to commit suicide. Somebody will do you a favor and put a knife in your ribs. It's not a good neighborhood. Now, I'm just going to some of the ball players that I was connected with and who taught me quite a lot, and some of the people I was in school with. This was Professor Ray Lump. He won a gold medal in basketball in 1948. And we had to take required physical ed. This man was an amazing. Even when we were playing softball with him, whatever he was doing, that's one class I took. There's the other thing. I have to keep looking for it. All right, these are people who were in school with me connected to athletics. And again, who made a choice in their life and their career goals. Starting on the left, Carol Heights. Does anybody remember her? Gold medal winner in figure skating back in the 50s. She went to NYU. Her nickname was Stinky. And she won the 1960 gold medal. She got that tall. And she dropped out of school because she couldn't. And her mother wanted her to win the medal in 1960. So she chose to leave school. Not that she ever regretted it. I think she went back. She married a doctor. And the next guy is Gary Bubner. This guy was huge. I mean, why? He's about 6'2". He set the NCAA shot put record at 70 feet. They sent him off to the Olympics. And his choice was to become a professional weightlifter. And he won the International Weightlifting Championship for a couple of years. He just passed away. You might know Martin Scorsese. You all know Martin, he did The Godfather and all that. He was from the Bronx. He went to Cardinal Hayes High School, and he's Italian. He lived in Little Italy, obviously. And he chose, they wanted him to become a priest. So he chose the priesthood, but he's got asthma so badly. He went to NYU. He majored in those years in television, motion picture, and radio. And he had to make a decision. What was he going to do? I think a friend of mine was doing TV, and you had to get your own cast. And I believe he was in the room because the whole class, in those days, television, motion picture, radio, had to be there. You had to be there at 7 in the morning to make whatever document you were doing. And the professor, Tate Manoogian, was his professor. He was there when I was there. Now, the last one is Neil Diamond. He was a member of the fencing team at New York University, and when he helped Abraham Lincoln High School win a city championship in 1958. He was a pre-medical major at NYU and attended on a fencing scholarship. Well, I took fencing, required. I used to sit next to him in the hallway. He had a guitar bag and a fencing bag. And we both were whining because my mother wanted me to be a doctor. I was pre-med. He was pre-med. We both hated it. Very quiet, very reticent young man. Without the long hair, he had a crew cut. And he fenced saber and holds the all-time NYU record for never being touched in 9 bouts. Sit there and he finally wrote songs that were late. Sadly, he now has Parkinson's. My age, he's turning 84 like today or so. And the choice he made was an interesting one. He went through 3.5 years at NYU. I went through 3.5 years at NYU and decided I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want anything to do with medicine. Mother was crushed. And I was arranged to go be an English major and get into graduate school. He left with 6 weeks left to go in the last term before his degree. And he went into the music business at $50 a week. The rest you all know. This is a character, Thomas Satch Sanders, NYU 1960. He was a sophomore when I was a freshman there. Now he went to Commerce High, came to NYU and chose to major in, I think, marketing. I'm not 100% sure. But why is he called Satch? Bet you nobody knows that. He played for the Boston Celtics for 12 years. Why? You know why he's called Satch? His hands?
That's my understanding.
Well, School of Commerce, you had to wear a tie and a jacket. He had the funniest looking briefcase, satchel, which his arms were so long, they were down below his knees. Because when he played, he wore stupid looking glasses and knee pads. And he could pull the knee pads up without bending over. So anyway, he was drafted #1 by the Boston Celtics. And they told him, get rid of the glasses, get rid of the knee pads. You're playing defense. He's the first black coach, and this is Black History Month, to coach at the Ivy League. He coached Harvard. He coached the Celtics. Last I heard, he was
He worked for the NBA for many years.
Yeah. But on the way, he got a master's degree, became a stockbroker. His choice, because in those days, they didn't make a lot of money. So that's Satch. He was one of my favorite ball players.
Really lovely guy.
Yes.
Warm, friendly, soft-spoken.
Absolutely. Until the guy hit him in the back and he knocked the guy's teeth out. But that was another story. Very soft-spoken. I saw him up in Connecticut in a convenience store. And he and his buddy, now let's look at this. This was your choice. This is Madison Square Garden as it was in the 50s. We would sit, if you look all the way to the back, you see all those seats in the end arena. The front row was
Sorry, Peter, to correct you, but that is the current Madison Square.
No,
that is not the old Madison Square.
they lied.
It's not the old Madison Square. It might have been. It's probably before the renovation, but it's
No. You know what it is? Because you can't find an old picture of the garden that tore it down. The only picture I can find is an American Nazi rally in the garden or JFK's birthday with Marilyn Monroe. But basically, it's the same structure. The only difference, you're right, Lou. I stand corrected. The balconies up there came out over the seats. So if you had something you could throw, it would come flying down. If you sat under one, you get cigarette butts and some other stuff. And a lot of fistfights there. Thursday night, NYU played at the Garden. But your choice was the Rucker. Now, this is a Rucker tournament in the Rucker Park now. It used to be an old dilapidated. You can see people sitting on the fences. They used to sit on the cars. And this produced, you could be a pro, you could be an amateur, you could be high school, as long as you could play and they accepted you. But had some great legendary ball players who chose to run the streets and do drugs and so forth. And it's sad, they made the wrong choice. Let's see what else we got here. This was Cal Ramsey, as I knew him. He's just passed away too, I think. He played for NYU. He had 28 years as a Nick broadcaster and community representative. Did you know he was a vice principal of a high school?
No.
He was an educator with a master's in education. These were not, and again, he was always dressed tie and jacket. And this was the NYU team I knew. Unfortunately, the coach was a ding dong. He coached the Puerto Rican. My little buddy, sad guy, is right. You know, Mr. Fish, Gene, right there. Makes a
third from the right.
No,
On the bottom.
Third from the right,
In the front.
little short guy.
Right.
And next to him is Barry Kramer, Happy Hairston. This team was #1 in the country, and they got to the end. They couldn't get along. They just could not get along. I don't know what was going on there. There was a mix of people, and if you look today. I'll show you a little later. Number 40 is a neurosurgeon. Next to Gene is a Supreme Court justice in New York, and there's some others there too that are no longer with us. NYU was the first team starting five. It was a limitation. You could not have more than 15 college-wise. Many of them, like Adolph Rupp, had not. And also, you went in the South, you could only put 3 black guys on the floor at a time. But the Boston Celtics were the first black player. And also, Red Auerbach was quoted as saying, I don't care what color they are, as long as they can put the ball in the basket. These are the 5 I kind of knew. There's Happy. He was not happy. Now, if you look in the upper corner, Gene Fish and Happy were roommates. Okay? They were roommates the first year, and they were not allowed to room together because Gene would give Happy the ball more times. His favorite offensive rule was, give me the ball, give me the ball. So, well, but let me tell you a couple of the other stories, who choices they made. Gene made a bad choice. He was a Polish Holocaust survivor who Nazis took. They poured hot grease on his head when he was about 6 months old and threw in the snow, seeing how long it would take for him to die. He survived. His parents and he were used. Mama was a freedom fighter. Parents were used as human shields on the railroads. They tied them to the front, sometimes on clothes, so that nobody would shoot at them. He survived. He worked in forced labor, a doctor. He was breastfed till he was 5. And they did survive the war and came to Syracuse. That was very hard to do because you have money. And it was a Catholic church brought him into Syracuse. He played on a high school team, no one over 6 foot tall, that averaged 113 points a game before the 3-point play. He flew. Anyway, he came to NYU because of Adolph Shapes, who was a star NYU player. But Gene was offered, whose phone? Well, story was, and we spent some time, he was assistant coach when Lou was playing at Stevenson School, and he got him some money. He got my old job. And he was offered, when he graduated, a commission in the Marine Corps as a ball player. No basic training, just played for the amateur team. He turned it down. He was offered a professional baseball contract with the Philadelphia Phillies. He turned it down. Made some bad choices because he felt he owed his family. I don't know what he was thinking. And he had some rough going. Today, he's just a broken person. It just really destroyed him. I think what they did to him over there. The man below is Dr. Bruce Kaplan. And we had a conversation at NYU. He said he was drafted number 4 by the Knicks. And he said, they don't need another slow white guy. He got a full scholarship to Einstein Medical School. He's a neurosurgeon. Barry Kramer was a highly touted basketball player, All-American, and he wrecked his leg, knee, something. And he was drafted by a couple. He played for the Knicks briefly, but he decided this is not a good choice. I'm never going to. I'm too small to be in those days. Today, these guys they all could shoot 3-point play. So he went to law school. And then he became a justice and a Supreme Court justice. He just passed away, I think, January 4th of this year.
That's Art Heyman with him.
And Art Heyman, I was about to say, your old buddy. You know what he's congratulating on? That's when they lost the NC the Final Four.
So,
yeah. And so he said, well, nice to meet you. I'm better than you. Art Heyman was not a person. Now we're starting into the realm of players who could have been. There's been a movie made about Earl, probably one of the best street guard players you've ever seen. He played briefly. His problem was drugs. They say he could take a quarter and put it on the backboard,
Top.
top of the backboard. That's how much he could jump. But he had a very close friend called Earl. He died very young because he committed himself. He could never get off it. Yeah. Again, we always tell these young men, you have a choice. Use it. Use what you have. Make it work for you. This is Connie Hawkins, the Hawk. He's, again, one of the best basketball players you've ever seen. He made a mistake. He went to the University of Iowa. He was the only black student, and they wanted to get rid of him. He was broke. He borrowed $200 from a guy over here, Jack Molinas. He borrowed it from him, thinking he was alone. Somebody caught him and used as an excuse to throw him out and get banned by the NBA for gambling. Molinas is part of the basketball scandals, so another bad choice. He did play in the ABA for Pittsburgh. I think finally he
played in the NBA for Phoenix.
Looks like the Suns.
he sued. He sued the NBA, made a lot of millions, and still never had the career
Right.
on the bad knees. Now this crowd, best ball player I ever saw. It's the guy on the left, Joe the Destroyer Hammond, who spent 11 years in prison. Joe's up there. The colored picture in the upper corner is old Joe. Joe, I ran into at Moshula Montefiore Community Center. I saw him in a game. It was amazing. 6'2". He jumped to the moon. He blocked the shot, brought it around, and dunked it backwards over everybody else. And I've spoken to other basketball, and they will say the same thing. Guys I worked with, who played against him, said, "Oh my, he never played in the pros." Listen, he dropped out of high school in ninth grade. I'm at this tournament, and who's at the tournament but Lou Amasaka and Bobby Knight. Saka offered him a full scholarship to St. John's. Joe said, "I don't need that. I'm the king of 116th Street, a girl on each arm for a coat." And he said, "By the way, I haven't gotten past ninth grade." And Carter Saka said, "Don't worry about that. We can fix it." St. John's had a reputation for graduating or letting seniors go after 6 whole credits. Quite the place, so to speak. And he got caught as a drug dealer and was put in prison, but now he's kind of reformed and he's helping kids and he's doing wonderful stuff. Guy Tom Helicopter Knowings. They said this guy could dunk 3 basketballs. His elbow, he could leap to the mochos. Jumping Jackie Jackson was another one who chose to play with bone colors. He would do a slam dunk with cream and a cherry on top, I'm told. And these guys were really, really skilled. Elevator man was Ulrich Kopp. I watched him play here and there, and thank God he ran into Dick McGuire, who gave him the right choice. And over here is the GOAT again. Up there is Willy Kirkland. He was a drug dealer, got arrested, but now he's a motivational speaker. I think he was 5'5" or 6, something like that, a little guy. And he and several others, they all have playground reputations, and they can bet you money that they beat you, and that's how they made their living, in addition to selling drugs. And it's a shame because I saw Cobb play in the Bronx. My job was to announce players at a basketball tournament, which you could do, you could play after the season was over as a senior, except if you were Catholic. So I ran into the likes of Dean Meminger. This was Calvin Murphy, some of the great ball players. This is Dr. J, who the Destroyer scored 50 points on, dunking over him. That's the Rucker. And if you look, the original Rucker was just a playground, and people would sit up on the fence, on cars, stand. The most interesting thing is the guy they never mentioned playing at the Rucker is Bill Bradley. Bradley is mostly black ball players. Bradley came out of Oxford, was drafted by the Knicks. He was Senator Bradley later on. He said, I have to hone my skills. So he went up here because he said he was too slow. And
This was before or after he was star at Princeton?
before what?
This was before or after he was a star at Princeton?
He was a star at Princeton, then he went to Oxford. And then he went from Oxford. He came home. The Knicks drafted him. They called him Dollar Bill because of all the money he got. And he took himself to the Rucker to improve. He lived in Denville, right over here. And I don't know where he dropped out of. I don't know why I know this. He dropped out of politics because of bad heart. Did you know the story about his wife hitting him with a car? They were in the old garden. She was driving a sports car, and she hit him. So she goes to visit him in the hospital, and they married. She's a professor at Montclair, or was. She's German-born of psychology.
Well, they divorced.
Did they really?
Yeah. Ernestine, I think
Yeah,
was the name
yeah.
of his
They
wife.
divorced. Who knew?
Yeah, no, they divorced a long time ago.
Really? And 2 girls.
That I did not
I
even.
did because he brought him to a ballet.
Yeah.
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 They divorced. I've seen a picture of him. He's very thin now compared to he was overweight.
I actually forgot to show you. I have a picture of him in my. He and
He
him and
really
me.
is 6'4".
I'm taller than him in the picture, but I am taller than him.
Big, tall guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor Bill. They had him picked as president back when he was in high school. Okay, this is Pelham Fritz. I called him Fritzy. You played against him.
Yeah.
You did. Elizabeth Irwin High School. If I could find the picture, you're jumping center against this kid. He was one of the founders of the Rucker tournament. He played, no, not Lou Lincoln. Elizabeth Irwin. Yeah, yeah. And he was wild. Fritzy, we call him Fritzy. He died kind of later on, and he's my link to basketball out here. Oh, you know Fritzy. He was in the Harlem YMCA. He was a recreation director, and then he got into a fist fight with the coach of New York Friends, which makes no sense. He played against him.
I remember Joe Black Jr., Joe Black's son.
Baldwin School. And the nickname of the coach. This is a big reunion. Willis Reed up there. And there's Clyde Frazier. This is them all older people. There was this particular team, I thought, maybe you can talk more about it later, Lou, had a particular bond. It was very important, and they liked each other.
That's the 40th reunion of the 73 championship.
All right, and you would Earl of Pearl,
Earl,
I can see Clyde,
Bradley,
Jackson.
Phil Jackson,
Who's that?
Jerry Lucas,
Oh, is he
Dick
still
Barnett
alive?
in the middle,
Skull.
Hawthorne Wingo,
Oh, one of my favorites.
who I used to hang out with on the Upper East Side.
Look,
Henry Bibby.
is that Henry Bibby?
Dean Meminger in front. And I can't really tell who that is in the back.
Well, Dean Meminger, everybody knew he was sweet. He was gay. And I think he designed
Dean the
that.
Dream.
What?
Dean
Dream.
the
So
Dream.
this is a sophomore in high school. Dean the Dream, yeah. And there's Frazier, who's now how old? 80?
79.
All right, here were the mixes. I knew them. Dick Barnett, fallback baby. He was a chess player. You believe he got a PhD, by the way, in education, and he would play on the road chess with about 50 different people by mail.
And all the other Knicks called him Dr. Barnett.
Colleague was Skull. And there's Bradley. The Busher was one of my favorite ball players. Absolutely, David the Busher. I think he got an master's in a stockbroker, and sadly, in his early 60s, he walked out on the street and fell dead of a heart attack.
Also was drafted by the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, that's a picture.
And was a
That's right. I forgot that. Yeah. He was, when you talk about athletes today, there's Frazier, there's Willis, Mike Reardon, Hazzy Russell. This poor guy is a tragic stalwart. And I don't know who that is.
John Warren, played at St. John's.
Not who?
John Warren
Oh, yeah.
played at St. John's. Matter of fact, my dinner last week was with a couple of guys who played with him at St. John's.
And you know, there's a John Wallace at some point. Yeah,
John Wallace.
I'm not sure because
From St.
no,
John's?
no, wait a minute. He's John Warren, right?
John Warren.
Yeah, he's St. John's. He came out here to Boonton. They decided to raise money. We could play against the football giants. And we brought a point guard with us. So I'm sitting on the bench. He's sitting on the bench. Neither of us were going to get in the game because these guys have to prove how good athletes they are. We had a long chat. And I went in the game briefly and I ran into a player named Spider Lockhart. And whoever's standing in the corner said, "You going to get the ball?" He says, "No, you're going to get the ball." I said, "No, you just stand here." How nice to meet you, Spider. Great guy. But Dave the Rave Stallworth actually came to your school with Willis Reed, and he had a cocaine heart attack at 29, and I think he died later on. All those guys, these guys made different choices, but he made the wrong one. They also drafted a guy named Mel Davis, the killer. He was
a St. John's guy.
yeah, but he also was. This is it's Reardon. That's Neil Johnson. He made the family at our church, and he grew to be about 6'9", and he played it with Pastor teaching him how to play ball, but then Pastor would take him home. It was a tough family situation. Walking across the street. Colleges, but he did. He played in Harlem. He played for Snooky Sugar Bowl, and so I think he played for the Virginia Squires and that, but he struggled. He was kind of shy. Whoops, am I missing again? This is not the way to do this. There's Bradley. Dollar bill. This guy is interesting. I don't know if you knew him. I was at Brooklyn Friends, and we hired Larry Newbold to run a summer. Newbold was a point guard on the LIU basketball team. He was drafted by the Hawks, and he refused to go because he had graduated. His mother was very ill. So he came in that summer, and that's when I realized when parents tell you they want their kid to be a professional athlete, this guy can play. And I feel one of the things that we're missing is the objective of all this. I had a young man who had a C average, maybe 6 points a game as a junior, and Larry came in, and we would scrimmage. Just play, get a ball. When he jumped, his armpit was. And so this young man, who I had coached, took it very seriously. He could shoot. So we worked him over to coming from the corner, following your shots, basic. The following year, he averaged 28 or so points a game. His average went up to A. One game, without knowing it, he scored 57 points against the school from Harlem. And the one thing is I never kept track of individuals. I would not post them. We have one. Win, lose. I don't care how. As long as you're playing for it. Nice fellow. I don't know whatever happened to him. But there was a couple of ball players who chose not to go to the NBA. We care for parents and stuff. This is a great story too. This is Adolph Shays. No, he was from 183rd Street in the Bronx. He entered NYU at 16 years old. And he graduated at 19 with a degree in aerospace science and went to play for the Syracuse Nationals. His son played in the NBA, but his average as a ball player was 4.0 engineering. But 7 foot tall. I mean, it helps. I coached his younger brother, and it's another sad story. He chose to go into basketball. He hated it. The younger hated it. basketball because the parents forced these kids to shoot before dinner. So Ronnie, his younger brother, said to me, if my father walks in the gym, I'm walking out. That's what he didn't play the year before. His brother was All-American at St. John's, played, but he just kind of drifted into the Eastern League. And it's a very rich family. So, I mean, the contrast is interesting. He played for St. John's. He was All-American. I met Adolph Shays. He was quite something. Very interesting, very tall. Very, very tall. Now, if you look here at the New York State Boys Basketball Point Club, down to the highlighted is Ron Stuyvesant from Lou's alma mater, Stevenson Prep, scored 66 points in one game. He graduated in 66, not 76. Ronnie was offered to play ball at Jacksonville. This is before the three-point play, too, by the way. He only shot twos. And he came home and said, I don't want to play anymore. His brother called him up and said, come play in the Eastern League. You can play pro. I don't think I've coached anyone who could shoot like that. I think if the three-point play was there, we've been good. And what happened, I don't know if Lou remembers, we were playing Bentley School, the little dumpy gym. And they started on this again. He was Jewish. And several of the schools, he wore a Jewish star, which you can now wear if it's pinned to your uniform. And they started on him with epithets that you don't want to hear. You dirty this, you dirty that. And the school was a therapeutics standpoint. So the cheerleaders started in on us. Go Bentley, it's before you, Lou. Go Bentley, beat 6-6. So Ronnie and I had another forward whose name, oddly enough, is Michael Francis Sherman. I never figured that out. So the two of them get together. The cheerleaders were really going out. And they were sitting on the sidelines where Ronnie says, I don't like this. So first thing is Shapiro takes the ball and inbound. Whoops. And then gets the ball back. And then Ronnie's running down. He says, beat me on half court. Ball goes to half court. He missed it. And he dove into the cheerleaders. They were so mad at him. And then the other guy saw he was really hot. So he started to feed him. Take him out, coach. I'm going to take him out. And you know I would take out if he scored way too many points. You know, if you had some team down on their knees, no. But this was, never forget that moment. He scored 66. He averaged 38 points a game. And he would not play. He hated basketball. He chose, I think he owns the Rogers or something in New York. And that's the end of it, Jerry. No, it's not. I'm talking about Willis Reed. I thought Willis Reed was a gentleman of basketball. Maybe I'm wrong. But we had conversation at your school. His first contract was $11,000 with a $3,000 signing bonus. He was the first overall pick, so he sold life insurance in the offseason. And LeBron James' starting salary was $18 million. And I hate to say it, LeBron is talented. He really did. He pulled me aside at school, and when he said, of course, our story is he says to Lou, I'm going to come to the game, and he told me, listen, so the door opens, the game had started. It's Reed. You were on the so he puts his hand on my shoulder. Hey, coach, you need an assistant for today? He sat down next to me. He did not have kind words and laughed. He didn't feel the team was trying. Coach came over after the game. We got a ball player. I don't know if you remember Dave Westerman. He had long hair. He made 17 straight foul shots because they kept fouling him. When he went to the line, he'd go, take his foul shot. And the coach came on, how are they going to let that kid have long hair? So, well, if the ball goes in the basket, I'm okay with it, you know? And he was really on me. They never invited us back. Amazing how that worked.
No, it wasn't.
It was a tournament. It was a tournament period. And I just thought he was such a gentleman. But what he told me, again, he said, when you don't see, we don't see what's under the surface with ball players. He was from Bernice, Louisiana. He did not wear shoes till November. He said we had one general store, which was the post office. He went to Grambling. There was talk of drafting him for baseball, and got a master's degree. And he said, now I come out of there, I'm on the road. I've got $10,000 worth of cash in my pocket, nothing to do. He said the women show up at the door, which happened to Kobe Bryant, and they're all over you, and they're bored, or they'll turn Stallworth. And he said it's just something people do not understand. So I think the Knicks filled their time creditably at that time, and he went on to a huge career. And we're 1 month apart, birthdays. Our sons are 1 month apart. His son's name was Carl.
He's deceased.
What? I'm sure. Yeah, is he really? I don't know whatever happened.
Long time ago, he died.
Yeah, I wonder. He's broke his marriage up. He said, my marriage was destroyed. He was a gentleman. He said, the only thing he wanted to know was why don't I get the same privileges from the refs that stars like we're getting? He said, they can throw the elbow. It's my foul. So he was very interesting about that. And he also said, if I promise a kid that I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be there. And if he doesn't remember, I don't remember who he is. He said, tell me. I will let you know. He would remember it. So that's about all I've got left of basketball. I continue coaching females. And I don't know if you call it girls basketball, women's basketball, female basketball. Sally played for Glenridge, and you all know that Sally was voted into the Glenridge athletic. Wake up. This feels like center stage with Michael K. Hey, you gotta sit up a little bit. There you go. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna ask the first question. I first met Lou when he was 13. 13. He said he's gonna grow to be tall. So I wanted to tell him your first time was in town. But this time he's in baseball. But he came to Stevenson, a small prep, which is little. What got you started in basketball?
Summer camp. Going to up in the Catskills, which they also called the Borscht Belt.
Oh yeah.
So it was where many Jewish families went in the summertime, and they had these places called bungalow colonies, which were an inexpensive way to spend your summer, and most of them weren't heated or anything like that. We were up in the Catskill Mountains, and then they had communal dinners, stuff like that, and
Oh, you just don't know. I'll tell you.
right. Anyway, so I went to summer camp up there, and one of the camps I went to, I think it was called Camp Timberlake. It's in Phoenicia, New York, and Camp Timberlake. I was really more of a baseball player. I grew up in Stuyvesant Town. We used to play our games on the fields down at Houston Street. Don't ever call it Houston Street. Houston Street and the East River Drive, the FDR Drive. We play our games there, and then after the game, we'd all go over to Katz's Delicatessen, which was just a few blocks over, and pay 15 cents for a hot dog. And now it's probably $7.50 for a hot dog.
Yeah, but anybody here been to Kansas? Oh, field trip. We got
It's
right?
the delicatessen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the waiters are nasty by design. Oh, really? So what do you want? What the surrounding sandwiches?
You'll have what he's having.
What?
Said you'll have what he's having. Wasn't that in Katz's? When
Absolutely.
they filmed that
Have you been
Katz's,
there?
right? No, I've never been to Katz's, but
It-
yeah.
I was taken there to lunch by the principal of Stevenson,
Oh,
Agronoff. He said, you have to eat at Kansas.
Yeah, it's an institution.
Oh boy, down that way now. I'd like to go there because it's a tenement museum.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
right.
I did that
Yeah.
once. It's fascinating. On Orchard Street.
Yeah, Orchard Street. Good. So anyway, what happened to basketball?
Anyway, so I was really into baseball, but turns out I went to this summer camp, and at the summer camp, coincidentally, it wasn't the reason I went there. There were 2 or 3 NBA players. In those days, the NBA players in the '60s, they had to work summer jobs in order to make ends meet. They didn't, they weren't signed to 7 and 8 figure or 9 figure contracts. There's a baseball player named Juan Soto who just signed with the New York Mets for $720 million.
Wow.
720
Over how many years?
5?
15.
No, it's a
How many?
15.
15?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So I'm sorry. So it's only 50 million a year.
Oh.
Good. You have to take a pay. Was it the Latrell Sprewell said he got blackballed from the NBA because he turned down a contract for $15 million. He said, "How am I going to feed my family on that?"
Yep.
And they blackballed him. He wouldn't. They wouldn't
Spree?
Latrell Sprewell. Anyway, so I went to this camp, and I fell in love with watching these great players, because in addition to the 2 NBA players, there were all a number of Division I basketball players from University of North Carolina, Ohio State, University of Florida, etc. And so that became, and I was also taller than almost all of the kids my height, although I was on the chubby side. Stays with me. And anyway, so I fell in love with basketball, and I got friendly with one of the counselors. And his job the next summer was to be be a head counselor or the director of another summer camp that offered him a job. And part of his compensation was recruiting campers to come to the camp, and then the owner of the camp would give him a bonus for every new camper that he signed. So came to my parents, to my house in Stuyvesant Town with the slide projector and made the presentation, et cetera, et cetera. And I decided to go to his camp. Anyway, long story short, he invited us to, my parents and I, to a game at the old Madison Square Garden, which was up on 50th Street and 8th Avenue, between 49th and 50th on 8th Avenue. He was playing or not playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, who had a player by the name of Wilt Chamberlain. And he introduced us to Wilt Chamberlain, and I swear I thought I was looking for the box that he was standing on, because I couldn't believe anybody could be that tall. My father was 6'6", not an athlete in any way. Went to the same NYU as Peter did, and anyway, so I was mesmerized, and in conversation, I think I remarked to Jerry, I was watching this kid run around with a Knicks jacket on, carrying towels and water and giving stuff out on the bench during the games. I said, "Oh wow, it looks like a great job. How do you get a job like that?" He said, "Well, let me see. I'm going to write a letter for you. I'm friendly with the general manager of the New York Knicks, a guy named Eddie Donovan. He was part of the, pardon the expression, Irish Mafia from the Bronx, and the rest is history." They sent me a letter, and they said, "We got Jerry Ward's letter. We don't have any positions available right now, but if you're ever in the neighborhood, please stop by. We'd love to meet you." I said, bang, threw on my bar mitzvah suit, raced up to Madison Square Garden, and the rest was history. I got a job, and for the next 3 years, 3 basketball seasons, I sat on the the visiting team bench for every single home game for the next 3 years, and I got to know every player in the league, including people like Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell and Satch Sanders and the Jones brothers and Oscar Robertson, people like that. And it's still, here I am. I'm going to turn 73 next month, and it's still my 15 minutes of fame. It's the Knicks ball boy. So people still know me as, oh, there's the Knicks, the old Knicks ball boy.
Well, I tell you, that's not how I remember you. I think I saw one Knick game you were working. He got me tickets behind the bench or something, but I was so enthralled with what they were saying. And my brother and I, to show you how times have changed, $5 each, we got a seat for the high school game, and you could sit on the floor. No more.
Well, actually, I was crestfallen. I went to Stuyvesant High School, which was one of the top academic high schools in New York. I don't know how I got in there, but I did. The same exam that you would have to take to get into Bronx High School of Science, where Peter went to school. And I came from a kind of a literary family of writers and journalists. My father started as a writer for the Associated Press and ultimately went into the public relations industry. And my brother had his own very successful public relations agency for many years. He started out as a news writer and did night shifts broadcasting the news for WINS at 10 Winds, New York. So my whole family was very literary. So that was kind of where I loved to write. And South Bronx, Stuyvesant High School was very oriented towards math and science. So it didn't work for me. It was really giving me a very hard time. I was feeling very inept, trying to compete with these kids with 97, 98 averages who were commuting an hour and a half on the subway from Far Rockaway to go to Stuyvesant High School because they were lucky enough to get in. And I had a two block walk to Stuyvesant High School. Anyway, didn't work out for me. And my parents wound up finding Stevenson School, which was, they called it actually a school for gifted underachievers. Right. We didn't talk about that too much.
Well, it was supposed to be, I can tell you now, minimum IQ of 115. If you were under that, and the other condition was, the school was I learned a lot, let me tell you, because you could teach what you love. Homework was the biggest issue, and they got rid of it. You were supposed to do your homework in school, and was small, but and the student was interviewed, if you remember, without the parents. You had to say, I want to go here, otherwise they would not take you. And some of the students there, we had some children of famous people you probably didn't know, and many of them had severe drug problems. That was the other problem. Had it transferred later on, it was a struggle.
Right. And interestingly enough, I was already very much a jock, which is short for for jockstrap, which doesn't even necessarily exist anymore.
I thought it came from jockey.
Oh, really? I thought it was for short for jockstrap.
It
doesn't matter. And I was there, the Knicks ball boy, and I was very straight. And I walked in there, and most of the kids had hair down to their shoulders. They were like very counterculture, hip. I guess we called them hippies at that time. It was I felt very much like a duck out of water. But basketball and the sports there were sort of my savior, and people like Peter to keep me grounded. And I made it through, graduated, got admitted to many different colleges, and I turned out okay.
I hope so. Now we had, it's a very interesting thing because this is how I got into basketball coaching. We had a coach there named Emery Sidney Jackson, who was drafted by the San Diego, whenever they were football from his high school, a swimmer, and he became the president of the National Urban League. They lost the basketball coach, and I played in the church, or in a year or two, we had gyms playing all the time. And so every kid in New York, that's my point, probably is born with a basketball. If you don't learn it in church, learn it somewhere
Oh,
else.
it definitely was a city game.
And the other thing, if you watch a kid from New York, when he goes for the basket, he goes on an angle. Why? Because there's a pole right there. I came out here. This is the best. I was playing a get-up game, and we said a pick and roll, and I hit the kid in the back of the head. I said, "What's with you?" He said, "What were you doing?" I said, "Pick and roll." He said, "What's that?" Every city kid knows what that is. And they played, when I was teaching in Brooklyn, hour and a half every lunch hour. I ran the floor with a bunch of teachers who could play against the kids. We had about 5 or 6 rings. Girls played with the guys, and you played 180 days a year and play basketball. But Stevenson School, as I recall, good, but most of the kids there belong here didn't want to do any sports. They wanted no phys ed, right? So the teachers were required to do the first 2 periods phys ed. And that's how I started to play. I had some bad times, tough times. But I guess I could write about. I taught kids off the roof. Stevenson, yeah. And I should write about the baseball team because that was another event. We're going. It's like,
The veteran sport.
Hey. Anyway, so that team that you had was eclectic, to say the least.
But we were competitive.
Yeah, we sure were. But
Competitive.
what a bunch.
Yeah.
What a bunch. I remember a lot of them because also I would point out Jody Friend there when you were there. He learned basketball in the same church.
No,
And we all played with Neil Johnson and all as kids. And we were taught the right way only in sportsmanship. Do you know that at Stevenson I never had a kid thrown out of a game? Over the years I've coached, I've done 2 technical fouls. One, I threw my jacket at the ref. But the other one was out here. And I had an all African American team of women. We were playing an all white team. She played for Princeton eventually. Went up and came down. It was coach. I went, "What?" So we packed it up, put our stuff under the bench at halftime. Nelson had been there before, the head coach. He says, "Ladies, if we win, grab your stuff and run for the bus." And we were followed out. We were screaming everything they could possibly think of. And again, the racism so much, but the ethic of youth. Cheers was a little past you. But anyway, so that team was, I'm trying to remember it. A kid whose father was mafia. I think I caught one of them smoking weed in the bathroom.
only one.
They caught.
But out here it was worse. Yeah. So anyway, so after that, where'd you go?
I had a few scholarship offers, small, partial scholarship offers to a few different schools, but I didn't want to be. I wanted to be away from New York, to be away from living with my parents who were, and they didn't really want me home, as a rambunctious and very temperamental teenager. So I wound up going to the State University of New York at New Paltz, which is upstate New York, and played, on the varsity team there. And then I wound up transferring to Hofstra University on Long Island, and mostly because I had an opportunity to live in my parents' an apartment that my parents rented for the summer in Long Beach, and I convinced them to keep it through the winter when the rent was really cheap. So I lived in Long Beach and had an apartment basically on the ocean. So it was like the bachelor pad at 19 years old or 20 years old. It was pretty cool. And then I was playing in a semi-pro league after college, and one of the teams we played against was a bunch of guys who played at St. John's, which was really a very high-ranked competitive team. And I had a good game, and I was one of the biggest guys on the court. And the guy gave me his card, and he said, "Listen, if you're interested, I can sometimes get guys contracts to play in Europe." And that's why I wound up playing in France.
It's good to hear. I don't know what time is it, Willie?
7:45.
You still drive at night?
Yes, I do.
Now, well, one of the stories that you may or may not know this, I got a call at 11:15 at night in Randolph for a new post.
How come?
With this kid, Dorf, did he play for you? Was the coach up there? But it's an
Oh,
award.
you mean way back when?
And you wanted to go visit.
Doug Shepard. Doug Shepard.
You wanted to see this guy. We call him the Ghost. They were actually paid to get the
College.
Now this guy called you and said, "I'm going to go up here." Why not? It's an opportunity. I was gay. He didn't want to get you to college, and I was scared because that was going on. Women's recruiting was worse. Because I got calls at 11 o'clock, UMass, saying it's horrible. But, they're recruiting.
Well, now with that NIL money,
Yeah, they get
paid to go to college.
Yeah, they switch.
To play sports in college.
Well, I think speak up. That's green.
Okay. Now, I'm Wayne Daniel, and having been here less than a year, but enjoyed this. You started off by asking about decisions that changed your life.
There you go.
I have a totally different background. I grew up on a farm in Arkansas, outside Little Rock, Arkansas, in Arkansas River Valley. Dad had a cotton and cattle operation. The town was our house was out on the edge of town, and the cows actually came up, swept up to the street light. But anyway, I could have stayed and had that. However, while I was still in high school, I figured out return on both capital and labor in agriculture in Arkansas, at least back in the 50s, was about a third of what it was any place else in the economy. So I was looking around for something better to do with my life. And about this time, Sputnik happened. There's this push, we need engineers in the aerospace industry. I said, okay, I can do that. So I graduated University of Arkansas in 1960 as an electrical engineer. And while I was at University of Arkansas, which is up in the northwest corner in Fayetteville, they regularly played the Kansas basketball team. His basketball team. And he actually is 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
If not more.
That must have been incredible to see him play in college.
Well, he ran track too.
Yeah.
Anyhow, this is why they wound up. The first job out of college was working for. That didn't last real long for two reasons. First off, I quickly figured out I had the wrong personality to be in civil service. Everybody I was working with was living paycheck to paycheck. That wasn't my goal in life.
Yeah.
So I wound up looking around again. Okay, what kind of jobs are out there where this isn't a problem? Well, if you sort all the people in the world on what they'll do to make money, hell into that sort. guys who get shot at for money. Well, I didn't join them. But I did join the next group in, which is the guys who take these really strange jobs, really out of the way places, drilling for oil in Saudi Arabia, building radars in Greenland, that kind of thing. And wound up spending most of the decade of the 60s running up and down the Atlantic missile range, building radars and trying to stuff the moon and back. Well, that worked out pretty well until we finally beat the Russians to the moon. And I discovered I was in a highly cyclical industry because it laid off half the industry, including me. Now, one of the other characteristics of life of these little boondock islands down in the Caribbean is if you're any kind of poker player at all, you finance your local expenses out of a local poker game, bank your salary and invest. That got me interested in the stock market. And Barron's was running the same smart money ads back then they still are. Read Barron, see how the smart money got that way. Well, I quickly figured out I wasn't part of that smart money. So when the time it came to come back and rejoin the world, I said, okay, let's go to Wall Street and find that smart money. So I came to New York, got hired by Citibank. They were managing as much money as anybody. But Citibank managed to pay for my MBA, got involved in their investment decision-making process, and quickly figured out the smart money concept was a myth. In any given year, somebody's right and everybody else is wrong. Occasionally the same guy 2 years in a row, but rarely 3. And with a possible exception of Warren Buffett, they were the same guy 10 years in a row. But also figured out it was an overpaid industry, so I stayed for 35 years. Very well.
All right.
Yeah, this is just another, but I noticed that you had, when calling people Adolf, did that name die out after the World War II?
I didn't hear what she said.
No, the name Adolf.
Repeat your question.
Yeah. Did the name Adolf die out after?
Talking about Adolf Shays.
Adolf Shays was Jewish.
Yeah, but.
I will tell you my Adolf story.
Uh-huh.
Right, ready?
Yeah.
In the German custom, the son of my father's naming me would be my grandfather. Well,
There's no juniors
Yeah.
in the Jewish faith.
right,
You're always named after
Jewish.
your grandfather. I was named after my grandfather.
Right, exactly. I was not because my grandfather is Adolf. When I was in 1941, and it was not a good name then.
Yeah,
So you could name him after my great grandfather, who was also Adolf.
Uh-huh.
So my dad opened the dictionary. Oh, I like Peter. I'm going to name you that. And then my middle name is after a friend of his, but he was so he couldn't be my godfather. But that's where Thomas comes from. My dad's name was Heinz Dietrich Lubrecht, and they wanted to name me after my step grandfather, who was August Friedrich. My father says, we want an American name. Germans were too popular, yeah, but Adolf spelled either way. Jewish people used it just as well, and but it wasn't a big name there too.
Lucky that he was 6'10".
Who was this?
Nobody picked on him. Adolf Shays.
Adolf Shays lived on 183rd Street in the Bronx. His parents owned a material store. Our first son was born. Well, they had and he walked. He went to Clinton, of all places, and he's probably one of the richest men in Syracuse before he died.
Yeah.
Brilliant. He's an aerospace engineer. He went to work after he played. I saw him play Louis and Lovett, a alumni game. Fish was playing point guard. Sidney Tannenbaum was playing the 2-shooter, and Shays was the center. So some kid from NYU, they were at D1. Hey, and Bruce Kaplan and all those guys. The way I'm going to take this whole guy, let me show you this. He never made it to the basket. Shays just, boom, the kid, about 40, and scored on it. You want to come again? Want me to come again, So and he was well into his 50s at this point.
Yeah, he was always a specimen.
And I did not talk tonight about the NYU scandals, which is another bad choice. The best ball player is now tending bar. Thank you all. If you have any more questions, thank you. Oh, I got to get Lou back to home in Sally Land. Glen Ridge, thanks all. Take care.